Hello and welcome. I hope you are enjoying the Bach to School 2025 sale here, celebrating 14 years of Bach Scholar Publishing. I'm making this video because I am very happy to announce the second edition of Bach's Goldberg Variations is ready, and it's hot off the press. I just got it in the mail today, this copy of the second edition. And let me explain how it's different from the first edition here, which was published 5 years ago. So I published the first edition of Bach's Goldberg Variations in 2020, and it's now 2025, and I just completed the second edition of the Goldberg Variations. Let me explain why it was necessary to make a second edition. Back in 2005, that was 20 years ago, I published an article in American Music Teacher magazine. This is the magazine of the Music Teachers National Association here in America. And I'm looking on my screen here because I can't even remember. It was published in the April edition, the April issue of American Music Teacher in 2005. It's called Bach's Goldberg Variations Demystified. That's the name of the article. I'm looking at it here. You may be able to find various copies of this article online. I would encourage you to do that if you're interested in the Goldberg Variations. I actually have a hard copy of that somewhere around here, but I couldn't find it. I would have, held it up and shown it to you. But anyway, Bach's Goldberg Variations Demystified. This is an article I wrote way back in 2005. And in this article, I make the point that the Goldberg Variations should be played by everyone. It shouldn't be an all or nothing type work, as many pianists like to think of it. We often run into pianists who will think, well, if they can't play all of the Goldberg Variations, then why even play them at all? That's really not a very good attitude to have for anything, really. You wouldn't say that with the Chopin etudes now, would you? Well, since I can't play all the Chopin etudes, I'm not going to play any of them. Okay, that would be like that sort of mentality. So the Goldberg Variations, contrary to common belief, is not, you're going to laugh when I say this, but it's really not as difficult as you think. It only seems difficult because we've heard all these crazy recordings at crazy tempi, played really, really fast, and it scares average pianists away. And so I try to demystify the Goldberg Variations in this article. You can read that if you'd like. Well, now let's fast forward 20 years. Okay, I wrote that, or published that article in 2005. Now 20 years later, 15 years later. Okay, so 15 years later, I published the first edition of Bach's Goldberg Variations right here. And the main feature of this edition, if you remember, or if you have it, is the tempo relationships between the movements, which is implied by Bach's use of fermatas. And if you map out Bach's fermata plan in the Goldberg Variations, like here in this chart, you see that it's highly symmetrical. It is something highly planned. Bach planned, or looking at where Bach put the fermatas is sort of like reading Bach's mind. It's sort of telling us what Bach was thinking when he was putting this down on paper. When you look at his first edition, and this is really Bach's own manuscript too, so it's not done by a copyist. So Bach has special places where he indicates fermatas and special places where he does not indicate fermatas. Most publishers, the vast majority of publishers actually, assume that Bach was making mistakes with where he indicated fermatas, and they add fermatas to every variation. And if you do that, you just cover up what Bach was intending. You cover up his thoughts. So when we map out the way that Bach made his fermatas, which variations he put the fermatas after and which variations he did not, it really reveals a quite shocking symmetrical plan. So this was the main thesis of my first edition. I did not give actual metronome speeds, but I used that chart here in the preface, and I used that to indicate in the score the relationships and tempo between each of the variations. But I did not, one of the things I did not have in the first edition in 2020 is actual absolute tempos for each variation. The reason why I did not put the tempos is because I did not know them yet. I'll just be honest, I did not know them yet, or I was not 100% certain yet, because I needed to still do more research. This was 5 years ago. So in that 5-year period, or actually in the last year, or in the last 6 months or so, I really hurried up and finished my magnum opus, which is Tempo and Duration in the Music of Bach. This is sort of like the master book of tempo, sort of like my tempo Bible, so to speak. So I have a whole analysis, a whole chapter on the Goldberg variations in here. And after I did this analysis here, which was just a few months ago, here in 2025, I realized there were just a few minor changes I had to do, and also I was ready to put in real metronome speeds. So in the second edition of Bach's Goldberg variations, you get the same beautiful manuscript as you did in the first edition, but there are several changes, some of them minor, some of them not so minor. So let me go over these changes that I incorporated here into the second edition. So this chart here is pretty much the same. It's 95% the same as in the first edition. It's just that I think there were 1 or 2 variations that I changed the tempo relationship based on my recent research from tempo and duration in the music of Bach. So I had to just make some minor changes here. Also, the text is a little bit different here, the explanation of it. And the preface is 90% the same, but I had to change some things here. I made reference to the ultimate guide of Bach's Goldberg variations, which unfortunately will never happen. I'm sorry, that will never happen, so I had to take that out. In place of the ultimate guide that I promised you like years ago, I am doing that on the well-rounded piano. So I am beginning this fall a whole Goldberg variations teaching series on how to learn and how to play Bach's Goldberg variations based on my over 30 years experience with the Goldberg variations. So instead of the ultimate guide on Bach's Goldberg variations, which I initially planned about 6 years ago, well, that's not going to happen anymore because it's sort of superfluous after having the second edition here and having my new book on Bach's tempos. I didn't think it was really necessary, but you will learn how to play the Goldberg on the well-rounded pianist. So remember that during the sale time, the lifetime memberships are 25% off. So go, if you want to learn the Goldberg variations with me this year, I will not be teaching these on YouTube. I will only teach them on the well-rounded pianist. So you need to get your membership today if you're interested in learning about the Goldberg variations from somebody who's studied them for over 30 years. So anyway, let me get back to what I was saying about the second edition here. So the tempo chart is a little bit different. I just formatted it differently. Same table of ornaments, pretty much, this is pretty much the same here in the preface. And the text is all the same. I lightened up some things a little bit. I think it was a little too dark in places, so I lightened up some of the lines and some of the text to make it more presentable. And as in the first edition, I also indicate here the tempo relationship between each of the variations. And also I added the duration ratio, which is something that you'll learn about in this book here. So that was added. That was something that I could not put in yet to the first edition. Beautiful manuscript. Also, I changed some of the page turns. I realized that a few of the variations were, the page turns could have been better. So I redistributed some of them on the pages to make the page turns easier. And it turns out that virtually every variation here has no page turn. Or if there is a page turn, I make it very convenient. I put it at a convenient place. So these are really highly convenient. You know, I've played from scores where you have terrible page turns. It's really, I don't like it at all. And you probably don't like that either. Really bad page turns. But I really made an effort here in the second edition to improve some of the pages. For example, in the first edition, variation 15 was on 3 pages, or maybe 2.5 or something like that. And so I got it down to 2 pages. I thought it would look too crammed up, but I don't think it is too crammed up on 2 pages. It's a slow variation. I like to keep slow variations a little more expansive. I don't like to cram them up on pages like some publishers do. For example, here is variation 13. See how beautiful that is? It's very legible. Most publishers just cram 13 onto 2 pages. For example, the Henley edition of the Goldberg variations here, you see variation 13? It's pretty hard to read. It's all crammed up on two pages like that. It's very, very small. I mean, it's very legible. You can read it. It's nice. It's legible. But this is even more legible. Okay, so you have variation 16 on 2 pages, and then the page, or 13, I'm sorry, variation 13 on 2 pages, and then you see I made the page turn at a very easy place where you can turn, and then it just continues on for another page here. And I spread it out because I didn't want it to be all crammed up. So if I took all this and put it on 2 pages, I think it would be, for this slow type of variation, I think that would be too crammed up. So one of the things I like to do is make the music look like it sounds. So if it's a faster variation, you can do more sort of cramming it up. But if it's a slower variation and it needs more time, I believe that it's better to have it notated more spread out. More spread out. So I think that notating slow movements or slow variations and have them all crammed up is a kind of contradicts the music. So anyway, this is what the manuscript looks like for the second edition. And I hope you will consider purchasing this in the sale, because I think this is just a spectacular edition. Spectacular. I've spent a lot of time on this. And as I said, I plan on continuing my Goldberg variation series, actually, which I began several years ago on the Well-Rounded Pianist. And I will continue this year on helping you learn and play the Goldberg variations. Now, buying this score is not mandatory for my teaching on the Goldberg variations, but it's recommended but not mandatory. So there are a lot of fine editions you can find on IMSLP. Those are the ones that I would suggest. Also, you can see the back has a little menu on there where you can order more books. So anyway, I just interrupted myself. I know I said something and then I said something else and forgot what I said. So anyway, it looks really nice. I'm very happy with this. I'm happy with this edition. And I hope you will consider purchasing this during this 14th anniversary sale. And I hope you will join the Well-Rounded Pianist, where I can become your personal professor and I will teach you everything I know about how Bach's Goldberg variations are organized, and which variations are easier than the others. I'll have suggestions for which ones to learn first and which ones sort of to avoid first, and that and so on. So I'm really looking forward to this year at the Well-Rounded Pianist, where I will, among many other things, I will emphasize the Goldberg variations, because I really think this is a very important work that is not fully understood by pianists. That's why I wrote my article in 2005, Bach's Goldberg Variations Demystified. It's my job to clarify the variations and make them understandable to the common pianist. So thank you for joining me. I do hope you will consider purchasing this fantastic second edition of Bach's Goldberg Variations and learn all about how Bach organized this great work, which he first published in 1741. So thanks for joining me. I'll see you in the next video.